over now. Please give a big virtual welcome to the stage to Ashley from Reddit.
I'm imagining applause in my head right now. Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining. Hope everyone is staying safe and well during this very odd time. But I'm really excited that you were able to join today, and let me talk to you a little bit about Reddit and about Reddit for app promotion. I'll start off quickly with who I am. I am Ashley Rankin, as you probably already know. I am a Senior Growth Partnerships Manager at Reddit, and I manage a growth sales team on the East Coast, and we're really focused on D2C clients and app developers and clients who are really focused on DR objectives and ROAS and measurement. So we've leaned really heavily into that in the last year at Reddit. And I did, as James mentioned, host a workshop last year. We were fairly new, so hopefully this is going to be a little bit of a 201. So I'm going to kick off with just Reddit at a glance. So those of you who don't know what Reddit is, I'll quickly go through some of that. And then I want to share some kind of tips and tricks for campaign setup, targeting, copy and creative, how to get the best out of your creative strategy at Reddit, and then some additional levers that you can pull if you work with our account teams specifically. And then hopefully we'll have time for a couple of case studies, a couple of app-specific case studies as well. So first of all, let's look at Reddit. So Reddit is a network of over 130,000 communities. And those communities are based on interests, and those interests can be anything from cooking to sports to fashion to entertainment to cats standing up. Yeah, there definitely really is a place for everyone. And I think what's really exciting about Reddit is that people come to find things that they're interested in and that is relevant to them. So 90% of people on Reddit say that there is a community for everyone and they've kind of found their home there. One of the things that really excites me is just the potential. Like, we have 430 million monthly visitors, which is huge. It puts us, we're in the top 5. I think we struggle for 3, 4 every now and again, but there's just massive potential there. And what's great for marketers is that we have a lot of unduplicated reach. So you can kind of see the stats there. About 14% of Redditors aren't on Facebook, 40% aren't on Twitter, and 70% aren't on Pinterest. So in this day and age, I know there's so many different opportunities for people to gain new users, but with Reddit, you really are reaching a more unique audience, which is something that we find is really resonating with our advertisers and our partners. Just a quick look at some of the demo breakdowns. We're about 43-57 women versus men. I know that sometimes people kind of have this perception that we're more male dominated, but we've definitely got a lot of really female focused communities, and we have had a lot of effort put into that as well in the last few years. We're about 65% 18 to 34. And what's probably the most interesting for you guys is that we're about 70% of our traffic comes from mobile. So we really focused on building out our native mobile app in the last few years, and when Steve came back to the company, and we really have seen an uptick in our users there. And again, our inventory there is huge. And Reddit really continues to grow year over year, like 30% from 2018 to 2019 has been just a huge jump. And we're still seeing that momentum, like people are really finding out about us and using us, and I think that's really exciting. What else is really exciting is that we have a really engaged audience. You know, it's not necessarily just the kind of scroll economy on Reddit. People go onto it to actually find topics to discuss and engage with. And for that reason, you know, over 30 minutes a day per Reddit user is spent on site. So as an advertiser, I think this is a really awesome way for you to get to a really engaged audience who's really unique to kind of you and what you're interested in offering. So enough of the sales pitch. I'm going to go into a little bit more about tips and tricks for campaign setup. A lot of these things have come about because we've kind of learned them. Our account managers and our account team work really closely with clients to set things up and to figure out what works in the platform and to kind of learn as we go along. Our advertising offering is fairly new and fairly nascent, so we're kind of building it as we go along the road. So a couple of things that we find more recently, and it's kind of more of the 201 of Reddit, is update your profile pic. A lot of people don't actually do this, and especially in the self-serve side of the business, people don't usually know that we can do this. But if you do upload a profile picture, you really add kind of legitimacy to your ads, and you kind of are able to get a better sense of your brand as well. And we've seen that advertisements that come from a username with a profile picture perform better than with our kind of generic avatar. Another thing to think about is to set up your bidding strategy. So I mentioned that Reddit is fairly nascent, and typically things don't work the way they do on other social platforms. I know generally people bid low and scale up, and that's how you see performance. But on Reddit, you actually need to bid higher to begin with to kind of get yourself an auction and to be able to gain traction for your ads, and then figure out what works. And then we decrease the bids to get to actually your ROAS goals or your CPA goals. Bids are going to fluctuate throughout the campaign. We're a second price auction. There's seasonality, there's brand campaigns, there's takeovers. But if you work closely with the account team, they'll be able to tell you what works. And they also have access to see what bids are clearing at. So really listen to their recommendations and set up your strategy based off of that. Timing is huge on Reddit. We're not a platform that you can kind of set it and let it for a couple of days with a couple $100 and understand what works and figure out results. We make a joke that our algorithm is our account managers and they leave at 5. So you really do need to give campaigns time to work. We recommend minimum 4 weeks, and we try to recommend about a 10K budget across those 4 weeks, especially if you're doing a managed service campaign. This just gives you enough budget and impressions behind each of your different optimization levers to figure out what actually works. So if you're running 3 different creatives, 6 different headlines, 4 different targeting groups, a run of site, you're running iOS, you're running Android, that builds up, and you need at least a few $100s per day behind each of those to understand what works and to optimize to what's performing the best. Another huge thing on Reddit is people come for big events. Like our traffic surges at things like the finales of TV shows, the Super Bowl, Cyber Monday, and all those kind of things. So you can really maximize your presence on Reddit by taking advantage of that. We have a couple tricks for more performance advertisers, which is to really capitalize on the audience around those big times, but also a few days before or a few days after, so you can actually get more efficient bids, and you can capitalize on the audience but also get efficiency. So a huge time for app install advertisers is, you know, the 26th of December onwards to the end of January, because brands' budgets have gone away and we're super efficient. As performance advertisers, we call that our Super Bowl. A couple of things on targeting. So the way that you set up a campaign on Reddit is that your campaign starts with your objective. And your objective can be reaching awareness or conversions or app install. So obviously relevant to everyone today is going to be more of the app install. And then within the campaign, there lives multiple different ad groups. And at the ad group level is where you break down all of your targeting. And we really recommend breaking it down by platforms, so mobile iOS, mobile Android, desktop, mobile web, geo, so a different ad group for US, UK, Australia, rest of world, Then for creative type, so if you're doing a video and a static, we recommend having different ad groups for either, and I'll get into that afterwards why. And then obviously for targeting. So we have run of site targeting, which is run of whitelisted sites for advertising on Reddit. And then interest groups, which is a collection of communities based on whatever you might want to target. So I think we have about 60 child interest groups, and it could be specific types of sports or specific types of lifestyle, like food and drink and that kind of thing. And then subreddit targeting. So if you want to get really, really niche into a very specific community, that's where you would layer on your subreddit targeting. That's actually something that we don't necessarily recommend to performance advertisers and DR advertisers, mostly because you'll be able to spend about $100 to $200 and it's going to be super efficient, and then you're going to max out. It can also be a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like if you're a game with a big presence on Reddit and you go into that gaming subreddit to advertise your game, what are the chances that that person already has it? So we try to get people to really start broad and to learn. One thing that you can do in Reddit, if you target a run of site campaign, you select all of the interest groups, and you can figure out which CTRs work for each of those interest groups. And we've recommended that strategy so that people can learn after the first couple of weeks where the highest CTRs are, where people are interested, and then hone their campaign into that. And so some of the things that we've found from that is that for mobile games, for example, we have seen that the business and finance communities and the parenting communities index really highly for performance, which is not something that anyone advertiser would ever come to us and say, like, we really want to target these communities. And this is something that we found out from that really kind of test and learn strategy of set a bunch of stuff live at the start, couple of weeks, figure out what works and hone it in. And that's kind of all performance marketing is, right? I mentioned this earlier, but really break out your campaigns or your ad groups by video and static. One thing that we saw whenever we had them both in the same group is that potentially if the video CTRs are lower, the whole ad group's performance is brought down. But when we broke it out, because the CVR in video was much higher, we could bid higher there, but we weren't wasting that budget on the static images. So we were able to get a bit more efficiency and understand conversions better by actually breaking the two out. And that was really helpful to especially our gaming campaigns, which obviously video tends to work a lot better for. One other thing that we recommend our clients do is really opt into audience expansion. And what this is if you set up a campaign with maybe an entertainment and a TV interest group, if you click audience expansion, that will find communities and users similar to that interest, and it will really expand your reach, expand your CTR, and also help you to learn what works as well as what you think works. This is something that we've used to really help campaigns to scale and grow and also improve efficiency. And then one thing to call out for Reddit is that really creative is king. I've seen campaigns live and die on a specific creative iteration that just absolutely worked or absolutely tanked. But the main thing that we really try to tell people is to be honest and transparent. The main thing that really works on Reddit is authenticity. So it's really important to find your Reddit voice, and it really works if advertisers can kind of lean into Reddit and speak to the Reddit audience and engage with specific communities, but it really has to be authentic to you. We've seen that it can work both ways. If you lean too hard into Reddit and memes and the meme economy and you kind of try too hard, it also doesn't work. So you need to find a really strong balance between like what you as an advertiser have as your brand and what you want to say, and how you can communicate that in a Reddit-y way to Redditors. And we've seen people have great success with this, and I'm going to go through some examples later on. But the main thing, again, is just authenticity on the platform is so huge. Also, create the right content for Reddit. We've actually seen a lot of places where things like, you know, coupon codes or promos work. If you're a performance advertiser, you don't necessarily want to run a campaign with an engagement prompt and comments on, because obviously that kind of stops you on your tracks to the App Store. But we've seen a lot of clients get really good results and feedback from users by using those kind of things on Reddit. We have an example of a cider company who got awesome results from a campaign with comments on, because people just really engaged with the message and with what the advertiser was trying to do. So it does work, but you need to be very, very careful with it. One other thing that surprises Redditors, or surprises advertisers, is that Redditors don't mind long form content. So we've seen really long headlines work really well. And this is one of those cases where I think it's just really important to test everything. Test long form headlines against short form headlines, test different CTAs, A/B test various different iterations, and you'll figure out what works for you, and you can hone in on your creative strategy from there. We also kind of don't have that many rules with creatives right now. I know a lot of other social platforms have kind of rules around what can be in the image and how much text and at what length and this and that, but we are kind of running blind. We're figuring it out right now. So something that makes a lot of sense is to play with length of videos, play with aspect ratio, you know, horizontal, vertical, square. We've seen a lot of different performance on each of these, and it really depends what your creative is and how to make it work for you. Again, A/B test everything and figure out what works, and that's how you get to performance at the end of the day. And then this shouldn't be shocking, but obviously prevent ad fatigue by swapping out creatives every couple of weeks. Multiple different headlines, multiple different images. If you have a library with that and you work with our account team, it really, really helps to have that so that we can go in and proactively make changes and optimize based off of that library and figure out what works. And then some additional levers that you can pull if you work with our accounts team. We have a few different features that we offer. Frequency capping is something that we can go in and change in our back end. So depending if you know what your ideal frequency per user is, you can let us know and we can change that up. We also play with that to improve CTR and CVR whenever we see performance decline. We also have a read-only API. So instead of having to go in and grab a report from Reddit for spend and marry it with your data from whatever other platform that you use, you can actually just ingest everything from our read-only API into your own aggregation system. And there's a link in this to figure out how to do that, but we do that with a lot of clients at the moment. We can also exclude keywords. So if there are specific things that you don't want to show up against that are specific to you, we can set that up in the back end for you. And just so you are aware as well, we have our own massive keyword blacklist as well that we apply to all campaigns for brand safety. We also have custom audience targeting. For app developers, we tend to use this more for suppression than targeting. We don't have a really high match rate, so this is something that we use to make sure that we suppress users and we can kind of increase our CTR and CVR from there without having any huge impact on scale. And then another thing that we have recently released is accelerated delivery. So rather than spending evenly through a lifetime budget, if a client wants to just blast the weekend or spend as fast as possible through their budgets for whatever reason, we can turn on accelerated delivery and it'll find as many users as quickly as possible to deliver ads to. And that's an admin feature that we can turn on for you. And then I've got some time to go through some case studies. If you are from the West Coast, if you live in San Francisco and you use Reddit, the chances are that you've seen a TripleByte ad. TripleByte leaned in really heavily to our platform and worked really closely with our creative team to develop ads that worked on Reddit and that spoke to Redditors. Fun fact about the person in this ad, this is TripleByte Mike. He's just a regular employee at TripleByte, and he got featured in their ads to the point where he got so famous in San Francisco that people would stop him in the streets, which we just found hilarious. He was their mascot for sure. But really working with our creative team to develop their strategy meant that they saw such high success with Reddit, and it was the largest part of their media mix. We had a 60% more efficient CPM. The completion rate for the quiz was 30% higher than everyone else, and we had a higher conversion rate compared to all of the bigger partners. And one thing that the client themselves suggested was, play with pop culture, test as many creatives as possible, and really lean into working with our creative strategy team because they're so well versed in Reddit. They're such experts. They know exactly how to speak authentically to Redditors with your brand as well. And this is just a little bit of an evolution of what the ads looked like. We had very basic TripleByte Mike ad to begin with. Then we leaned into the kind of meme culture. Then we leaned into another meme culture. Then we created our own. And then one of the really interesting ones that worked really well was giving people a break from the ads and telling them just to sign up for the quiz if you want to. So we really worked on that evolution with our creative team and with the client, and they were so leaned in that this worked super well. And then one final case study, which is probably makes a lot of sense to the gamers in the room. We worked closely with Zenga on their CSR2 game. They worked very closely with our team to set up the campaign in the correct structure, with the correct bids, with the correct creative. And we drove a really high 1.5 times LTV and 16% higher retention rate than other platforms. So I just want to call out that sometimes whenever clients work with us, they do kind of bulk a little at higher CPIs, but almost everyone who's done that has come back and said, even though your CPIs are a little higher than other platforms, your LTV, your ROAS, your retention rates are by far and away the best in our media mix. So this just really speaks to, I think, how engaged the Reddit audience are, and how if you use the right targeting, the right creative, and you speak to the right audiences, you can really get some awesome results from Reddit. And that is pretty much it from me. I probably went through that super fast, but I'd love to be able to answer any questions or go into any further details that anybody wants.
Great, thanks Ashley, that was great. Do you want to just stop sharing your screen and we'll just do some Q&A now. If anyone has any questions, please leave them in the Q&A box. And we're going to kick off with one from Rashi. He's saying, well, they're launching a kids app. Is the parent community there on Reddit? What about that? Is that a sort of strong demographic? How would you go about promoting, say, a kids app on your platform?
Yeah, so we definitely have a very strong parenting community. I would recommend working with our accounts team, and I don't know if my email is available to people after this. I'm sure it is. You can hit me up on LinkedIn. We're always happy to help with any kind of strategy that you may want from us. We have a good parenting community. There's some other things that we can do on our side to help you get set up for success. But that is one of our interest groups that you can target if you want. And if you work with our team, we can help you set up a media plan and a campaign structure and go from there.
Great, and you seem to be suggesting that, I mean, obviously the big thing with Reddit is the interest groups, and the obvious thing seems to be, yeah, you could target on a specific subreddit or vertical, but you seem to be suggesting that actually you want to just be looking more broadly at kind of a Reddit audience, and maybe then you know, sort of targeting more widely rather than just a specific subreddits. Is that right?
Yeah, so if you target a specific subreddit, you're getting only users who have engaged with that specific subreddit. And that's not necessarily always going to be, a high volume. So if you want efficiency and scale, we recommend testing interest groups because you're going to be able to get to more of an audience. You're going to be able to get more efficiency, and you're also going to be able to learn what works. So I kind of mentioned it briefly earlier, but if you set up a campaign in Reddit and you select all of the interest groups, you can pull a report after a couple of weeks to show which of those index highly in a CTR and which you should throw out and optimize out. And so many clients that have done this have come back and said, like, we never would have expected this audience to work for us. And then they've changed their strategy on Reddit to actually target that specific audience or target that specific interest group. So I think I really try to steer people away from this kind of self-fulfilling prophecy of, we're a gaming app, we want to target the gaming subreddits that are specific or that are conquesting to our competitors, and that's all we want to do. Like, you can do that. The chances are these people already have those apps if they're hardcore gamers, and the chances of you being able to scale and test and learn more about what works for you is limited. I really recommend people use Reddit as a place to learn about their audiences as well, and to kind of be surprised about what can work for them, and how to, hone in their strategy maybe for other platforms as well.
Got it. And Paul is asking, do you have a list of events that occur that typically drive the high engagement you talked about, and how long does this afterglow spike if new users occur?
Yeah, I believe we have a calendar that I can probably share after this. It really depends on what the event is. For Christmas, for Boxing Day, or St. Stephen's Day, or whatever, you guys don't have it in America. For after that, we typically see the kind of glow through a few weeks in January. We see a halo effect, before the Super Bowl. People are trying to figure out and place bets and understand what's going on. And so there's like a week before and a week after. But if you kind of work with our account team, or if you want to get advice from our support teams, we're always ready to kind of give any advice on that. And for the calendar, I will follow up and let you know what the kind of tentpole events that we look at are.
Great. Okay, and Artem is asking, while it's a rather transparent promotion system on Reddit where things get harder, organic promotion through comments and posts, because the Reddit admins are very intolerant to any promos in the actual posts and comments, so what strategy would you recommend for an app? Would you rely on paid promos only, or would you combine it with a kind of organic posting?
So we are definitely working on an organic strategy, but you mentioned that, admins are against promoting within comments and whatever. That's because that's not something that our users want. I talked a lot about, authenticity and being able to speak to Redditors. If you want to do a straight up promotion of an app or a site or whatever else, go the paid route. If you think that you can add value to a conversation, then you can do an organic strategy. You can post updates about your product. You can post interesting articles. You can join in conversations, but it has to be to add value and not to kind of say, come click this link and get this. That just doesn't work for Redditors, and you'll get downvoted into oblivion. So if you're trying to look for a straight up app promotion, I would go the paid route. There are good ways to do organic, and I've got a couple case studies in that I can share as well. But the main thing with that is that you have to add value to the conversation, and it has to be helpful to Redditors.
Great. And in terms of verticals that work, or app verticals that you've seen work well on Reddit, yeah, you've mentioned sort of games and is it what sort of do you think are the sweet spots for Reddit?
I get asked this question all the time, and every time I give the same answer. Because there's a place for everyone, and because there's something for everyone on Reddit, we've seen just a ton of different things work. Like, obviously, game and app install is huge. Fintech is huge. Education, like any kind of higher education or coding or anything like that, that also works really well. We've seen insurance work really well. We've seen cat litter work really well. We've seen mattresses work really well. So, you know, there is a place for everyone. There is an opportunity for everyone. I wouldn't say that there's a specific vertical that just absolutely kills it. There are some that index higher. But if you have a product that you want to promote, I think there is somewhere on Reddit that you'll be able to get traction.
Got it. And if someone's looking to get started on Reddit, what's the best thing? Just go on the self-serve page and, you know, fire up a campaign and sort of test and learn. You know, how do you sort of, how's a good way of getting going if you're an app and you want to explore this?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways that you can start up on Reddit. I think obviously we have a self-serve platform. You can go in there, you can set your credit card up, you can fire up a campaign. But what we've seen is that if you work closely with our account managers to set things up or to give you advice of the best structure, of the best creatives, of your bidding, we've seen that campaigns work a lot better and are able to stay on the platform for a lot longer. So I do really recommend reaching out to Reddit help or to someone on an account team, to me, to whoever, to put you in the right direction. Because you know, even if you have a little amount of budget to spend initially, we can give you advice on the best way to maximize that budget. And like, follow the guidelines that I shared here. There's also a ton of different Reddit help articles on bidding strategy and how to set things up. But definitely we like to work really closely, like as an extension of our clients' teams, to set things up. We're fully managed white glove service. Will set up links and campaigns and upload creatives and do all of that stuff for you if you have bandwidth constraints on your part as well.
Great. Okay. Well, really appreciate you joining us today, Ashley, and really good to see how the platform's developing, and hope to see you potentially in 2021 in at Promotion Summit NYC in the real world again. But in the meantime, this is great, and yeah, thanks to everyone on the live, and if you're watching this recorded, best way to get in touch is head over to Reddit advertising, and then yeah, reach out to the account manager. So thanks Ashley, and really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Great, thanks.
Bye.
Thanks everyone.